Have you ever been rejected by a woman you genuinely wanted, only to notice that something strange happens after you finally stop chasing? At first, you may have done everything you could. You explained yourself. You sent another message. You tried to prove that you were different. You wondered what you did wrong. And every time she became more distant, you became more desperate to close the distance. But then something changes. You stop texting. You stop checking whether she viewed your story. You stop trying to convince her. You start focusing on your own life. And suddenly, she appears again. Maybe she sends a simple message. Hey, how have you been? Maybe she likes one of your old posts. Maybe she starts asking mutual friends about you. Or maybe she comes back directly, acting as though the rejection never happened. And now you're left wondering, why? Why does someone sometimes become interested again after they were the one who walked away? Is it because she finally realized your value? Is it because she misses you? Is it because she never truly stopped caring? Or is there something deeper happening psychologically? The Stoics would tell you that the most important part of this story has almost nothing to do with making someone come back. It has to do with what happens inside you when you stop needing them to. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why rejection can sometimes change the entire dynamic. And why the strongest response to rejection is not revenge, manipulation, or pretending you don't care. It's something much more powerful. Becoming so emotionally grounded that whether she returns or not, you remain at peace. If you're tired of allowing rejection, disrespect, or someone else's opinion to control your emotions, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Stoic Mind. Every lesson here is designed to help you become calmer, stronger, more disciplined, and harder for life to shake. Stay until the end, because the final lesson may completely change the way you see rejection. Rejection hurts because it doesn't just feel like losing another person. Sometimes it feels like losing a version of yourself. You start asking questions. Was I not good enough? Was there something wrong with me? Why did she choose someone else? Why did she lose interest? And if you're not careful, rejection can turn into an obsession. You replay conversations. You analyze every message. You look for the exact moment when things changed. You imagine what you could have said differently. You convince yourself that if you just explain yourself one more time, everything might change. But this is where emotional suffering begins. You are trying to control something that was never completely under your control. Almost 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught a principle that remains brutally relevant today. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. You can control your behavior. You can control your character. You can control whether you chase someone. You can control whether you beg for attention. You can control how you respond to rejection. But you cannot control another person's feelings. And the moment you accept that, something inside you changes. You stop fighting reality. You stop trying to force an outcome. You stop asking, how do I make her come back? And you start asking a much more powerful question. How do I become the kind of man who remains whole, regardless of who stays? That is where Stoicism begins. And ironically, that transformation can sometimes change how other people perceive you. But there is an important distinction. You should never become emotionally independent to manipulate someone into returning. Because if your entire self-improvement project secretly has one purpose, to make someone regret rejecting you, you are still controlled by that person. You've simply changed the strategy. True strength begins when you improve yourself even if she never comes back. Imagine a man named Daniel. Daniel meets a woman he really likes. The conversations are good. They laugh. They talk regularly. He starts imagining where the relationship could go. Then one day, she tells him, I don't think I'm interested in taking this further. Daniel is devastated. But instead of accepting the decision, he tries to negotiate. He asks why. He promises that he can change. He sends long messages explaining his feelings. He tries harder. And ironically, the harder he tries to recover the connection, the more uncomfortable the situation becomes. Eventually, Daniel realizes something. He cannot convince someone into genuine attraction. So he stops. Not as a trick. Not to punish her. Not because he's secretly waiting for her to panic. He simply accepts the reality. He returns his attention to his own life. He goes back to the gym. He focuses on his work. He reconnects with friends. He reads. He builds something. He becomes comfortable being alone. Weeks later, she reaches out. Now Daniel faces a completely different decision. Before, his question was, how can I make her choose me? Now his question becomes, do I even want this anymore? That is the transformation. The power didn't come from making her return. The power came from becoming emotionally capable of continuing without her. This idea fits deeply with Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that external events do not determine the quality of his character. The Stoics understood something many people still struggle to understand today. You can desire something without becoming dependent on it. You can love someone without possessing them. You can hope someone chooses you without believing your worth depends on their choice. And you can experience rejection without allowing rejection to define your identity. That is the foundation for everything that follows. The first reason people sometimes reconsider someone they rejected is not because rejection magically increases your value. It's because distance can sometimes reveal what constant interaction concealed. But before we go deeper, understand this. Your value was never created by another person's approval. If someone rejects you, that doesn't mean you suddenly became less valuable. It means the two of you were not aligned in that moment. That's all. Yet many men turn rejection into a personal verdict. They think, she rejected me, therefore I'm not attractive. She chose someone else, therefore I'm inferior. She lost interest, therefore I wasn't enough. But that's an emotional interpretation, not an objective fact. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He understood that praise and criticism were both external judgments. If praise could make you valuable, then criticism could make you worthless. The Stoic refuses both. Your character must have an internal foundation. This changes how you handle rejection. Instead of saying, how can I convince her I'm worthy? You say, I know who I am. Her decision is hers. That doesn't mean you ignore your weaknesses. If you have things to improve, improve them. But improve because you respect yourself, not because you're trying to pass someone else's test. And that distinction is enormous. Because when you stop treating rejection as evidence that something is wrong with you, you become calmer. And calmness changes your behavior. You don't overtext. You don't plead. You don't argue. You don't try to make someone feel guilty for not choosing you. You simply accept reality. And acceptance is often where emotional strength begins. There is a painful truth many people don't want to hear. You cannot chase someone into genuinely wanting you. You can create pressure. You can create guilt. You can create temporary attention. But you cannot manufacture genuine desire through persistence. This is why chasing often makes emotional situations worse. Imagine someone walking away from you. Instead of letting them walk, you run after them. They walk faster. You run faster. Eventually, you are exhausted. But the person is still moving away. Now imagine you stop running. You stand still. You breathe. You accept the direction they chose. Suddenly, you have your energy back. This is what emotional detachment does. It doesn't guarantee that someone will return. It simply stops you from destroying yourself trying to prevent them from leaving. And there is another psychological benefit. Distance creates clarity. When someone is constantly receiving your messages, explanations, attention, and emotional energy, they may never experience what your absence feels like. But when you step back respectfully, both people get space. You get space to recover. They get space to think. And sometimes, with distance, people reassess their decisions. Sometimes they realize they missed the companionship. Sometimes they recognize qualities they didn't appreciate before. Sometimes circumstances simply change. And sometimes, they never return. You must be emotionally prepared for all four possibilities. Because Stoicism isn't about learning how to make people chase you. It's about becoming strong enough that you don't need them to. One of the most emotionally exhausting things you can do after rejection is trying to prove that the other person made a mistake. You want them to see what they're missing. You want them to realize, I was actually the right man. So you begin performing. You post things hoping they'll notice. You suddenly become extremely successful in public. You want them to hear about your achievements. You want mutual friends to tell them how well you're doing. But ask yourself honestly, if she never saw any of it, would you still do it? If the answer is no, then you are not completely free. You're still performing for an audience of one. True self-improvement looks different. You work on your body because you want health. You build your career because you want purpose. You develop discipline because you want self-respect. You read because you want wisdom. You become emotionally stable because you don't want your happiness controlled by circumstances. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to prove your value, your confidence often becomes more authentic. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to demonstrate it. You simply live it. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he emphasized character over reputation. Your job is not to control what people think of you. Your job is to become someone you respect. Sometimes people don't fully appreciate something while it's constantly available. This isn't unique to romantic relationships. Think about a favorite place. You visit it every day. Eventually, you stop noticing the details. Then you move away. Months later, you remember the smell, the atmosphere, the conversations, the small moments you never realized mattered. Distance can change perception. The same can happen between people. When you're constantly present, your attention can become background noise. But when you disappear from someone's daily routine, they may suddenly notice the space you occupied. They may remember your conversations, your humor, your kindness, your consistency, your presence. But there is a crucial warning here. Never weaponize absence. Don't disappear to punish someone. Don't ignore them to make them anxious. Don't use silence as manipulation. Stoicism is not emotional gamesmanship. If someone has clearly rejected you, respectful distance is enough. No dramatic announcement. No revenge. No. Watch me become successful. Just silence, acceptance, and forward movement. And if they return, you don't immediately celebrate. You observe. Because returning is not the same thing as changing. That distinction may save you from repeating the same painful cycle. Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever been rejected by someone, only for that person to come back later? And when they returned, did you still want them, or had you already changed emotionally? Share your experience in the comments. You never know who may be reading your story while quietly going through the same thing. Sometimes one honest experience can help another person realize they are not alone. This is where many people make their biggest mistake. Someone rejects them. They heal. They rebuild themselves. Then the person comes back. And instantly, all their emotional independence disappears. One message arrives. Hey, I miss you. And suddenly they forget everything. The sleepless nights. The anxiety. The uncertainty. The rejection. The emotional pain. They rush back because they interpret the return as proof that they finally won. But that's dangerous. Because the question isn't, does she want me now? The question is this relationship actually healthy for me now? Those are completely different questions. If someone returns, don't punish them for leaving. But don't blindly reward them either. Observe their consistency. Have circumstances changed? Has communication improved? Are their intentions clear? Are their actions aligned with their words? Do they respect you? Do you feel peaceful around them? Or are you simply addicted to finally receiving the validation you wanted? This is where Stoic judgment becomes powerful. The Stoic doesn't become intoxicated by attention. He observes reality. He doesn't say, "She came back, therefore everything is perfect." He says, "Interesting. Let me see what is actually happening." That's emotional maturity. There is something deeply attractive about a person who doesn't need to control everyone around them. They don't panic when someone pulls away. They don't collapse when someone disagrees. They don't beg for attention. They don't need constant reassurance. They have an internal center. That doesn't mean they don't feel. A Stoic man can feel heartbreak deeply. He can miss someone. He can be disappointed. He can cry. He can love intensely. Stoicism doesn't teach you to become emotionless. It teaches you not to become a slave to your emotions. There is a difference. If you feel sadness and say, "I'm hurting, but I can still act according to my values," that's strength. If you feel rejection and say, "I'll destroy myself until this person accepts me," that's emotional dependence. The strongest man isn't the one who never cares. It's the one who can care deeply without abandoning himself. That is what you should build. Not an image. Not a strategy. Not a performance. An inner foundation. This may be the most important lesson of the entire video. If you secretly spend every day thinking, "One day she'll regret losing me," then she still controls you. You may not be texting her. You may not be calling her. You may look completely detached. But internally, you're still waiting. That's not freedom. That's delayed attachment. Imagine spending 6 months improving yourself only because you hope someone notices. What happens if they never do? Do those 6 months suddenly become meaningless? No. Because the real reward should have been the person you became. That's the Stoic perspective. Your life is not a waiting room. You don't sit there waiting for someone to return before you start living. You live now. You build now. You heal now. You grow now. And if someone eventually returns, they are entering a life that was already moving forward. They are not becoming the reason it moves. That's the difference. So what should you actually do? First, accept the rejection without negotiating. If someone says they don't want a relationship, believe them. Don't demand an explanation that satisfies every emotion inside you. Don't argue. Don't plead. Respect the decision. Second, create healthy distance. Stop unnecessary communication. Don't constantly check their social media. Don't search for clues. Don't ask mutual friends what they're doing. Give your mind room to breathe. Third, rebuild your daily structure. Wake up at a consistent time. Exercise. Work on your goals. Read. Spend time with people who genuinely care about you. Develop skills. Take care of your environment. Small actions restore a sense of control. Fourth, allow yourself to feel the pain. Don't pretend you don't care. Tell yourself, "Yes, this hurts." Then ask, "What can I control today?" That question brings you back to the Stoic circle of control. Fifth, stop checking for signs that she's coming back. This is extremely important. Every time you check her profile looking for evidence, you're feeding the attachment. Your goal isn't to predict her next move. Your goal is to control your next move. Sixth, if she returns, slow down. Don't immediately return to the old emotional dynamic. Talk. Observe. Ask questions. Watch behavior. And most importantly, ask yourself whether you genuinely want the relationship, or whether you simply want the validation of being chosen. Finally, Create a life that doesn't depend on romantic approval. Because when your happiness depends on being chosen, every rejection becomes devastating. But when your happiness comes from your character, your purpose, your relationships, your health, your discipline, and your inner peace, rejection becomes painful without becoming destructive. And that is a completely different kind of strength. So why do women sometimes come back after rejecting a man? Sometimes it's because distance gave them perspective. Sometimes they recognize qualities they previously overlooked. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes curiosity returns. Sometimes they miss the connection. And sometimes they simply change their minds. But there is no universal psychological law that says rejection will make someone return. And that's precisely why you must never make their return your objective. Because the moment your goal becomes making someone regret rejecting you, you are still emotionally attached to their judgment. The deeper Stoic lesson is far more powerful. Let rejection teach you how to release control. Let it teach you that you don't have to chase someone who doesn't choose you. Let it teach you that your worth doesn't rise when someone loves you and fall when someone leaves. Let it teach you to become comfortable with uncertainty. Let it teach you to build yourself for yourself. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world filled with war, political pressure, betrayal, loss, illness, and death. Yet he repeatedly returned to the same fundamental idea. You don't control everything that happens to you, but you control the person you choose to become in response. That means rejection can become two different stories. In one story, rejection destroys your confidence. You chase. You beg. You overthink. You wait. You become obsessed with proving your worth. In the other story, rejection becomes a turning point. You grieve. You accept. You learn. You rebuild. You become disciplined. You become peaceful. You stop asking, "How do I make her come back?" And you finally ask, "How do I become the man who doesn't need anyone to come back before he can live a meaningful life?" That is the moment you become free. And here's the final paradox. When you stop needing someone to choose you, their choice no longer has the power to define you. If they return, you can evaluate them calmly. If they don't, you can continue forward peacefully. Either way, you win something more valuable than their attention. You win yourself back. And perhaps that is the real reason rejection exists sometimes. Not to show you that you're unworthy, but to force you to discover that your worth was never theirs to give. Thank you for staying until the end. If this message helped you see rejection differently, like this video and subscribe to Stoic Mind for more lessons on emotional control, discipline, self-respect, and mental strength. Share this video with someone who may be struggling silently with rejection. And when you're ready, watch the next Stoic lesson, because becoming mentally strong isn't one decision. It's a practice you repeat every day. Master your mind. Build discipline. Live with wisdom.